I was standing in my parents' kitchen when my mom looked me dead in the eye and called me selfish in front of 12 relatives. My sister Harper was sitting at the table with tears running down her face. Real tears. The kind she could always summon on command. And everyone was staring at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. The dress in question, this ridiculous lavender monstrosity that Harper had picked out, cost $800. $800 I didn't have. I'd told her this in private 2 days earlier. Suggested maybe we could find something similar for less. And she'd said she'd think about it. Apparently thinking about it meant running to our mom and spinning the whole thing into me trying to ruin her wedding. My hands were shaking. I could feel my face getting hot. And my mom just kept going, her voice getting louder with each word. After everything your sister has done for you, after all the time she's been there, you can't do this one thing for her? I mean, I need to back up here because none of this makes sense without context. Harper and I grew up close, or at least I thought we did. She's 3 years older than me, and when we were kids, that felt like a huge gap. She was the one who taught me how to do my makeup, who let me tag along to parties when I was in high school, who helped me move into my first apartment after college. But there was always this underlying thing, you know? Like she was keeping score of every favor, every nice thing she did. I noticed it, but I didn't really think about it too much. That's just how Harper was. She liked being the helper, the one everyone relied on. She got engaged to Blake last March, and I was genuinely happy for her. He seemed like a good guy, stable job, treated her well, the whole thing. When she asked me to be her maid of honor, I cried. I'm not gonna lie. It felt like this validation that we were actually as close as I'd always wanted us to be. She handed me this little box with a bracelet in it that said maid of honor, and we took pictures and posted them, and everyone was so excited. The wedding planning started basically immediately. Harper had this vision. She'd been planning this thing since she was like 14. Had binders full of ideas and color schemes and venue options. And I was all in. I helped her tour venues, spent weekends addressing invitations, went to every single cake tasting and florist appointment. She wanted to look at bridesmaid dresses in April, just 2 months after the engagement, even though the wedding wasn't until October. I remember thinking that was fast, but whatever. It was her day. We went to this bridal shop in the city, fancy place with champagne and those big mirrors everywhere. Harper tried on her dress first. Gorgeous, like something out of a magazine. And then we started looking at bridesmaid options. She had 3 other bridesmaids. Her friend Elise from college, Blake's sister Madison, and our cousin Celine. They were all there, all trying on dresses, and everyone's being supportive and excited. Harper kept gravitating toward these really expensive options. Every dress she liked was minimum $600, and I could see Elise and Madison exchanging looks. Celine's family has money, so she wasn't worried. But the rest of us were clearly doing math in our heads. I pulled Harper aside at one point, tried to be casual about it. Hey, do you think we could look at something in a lower price range? Some of these are pretty steep. She got this look on her face, like I'd just suggested she get married at a McDonald's. These are designer, she said. This is my wedding. I thought you'd want to look nice. Which, okay, fair, but also like, there's nice and then there's $800 nice. I dropped it because I didn't want to cause a scene. We ended up not picking anything that day. Harper said she needed to think about it, which I figured meant she'd come around to something more reasonable. Wrong. 2 weeks later, she sends this text to the bridesmaids group chat with a picture of the lavender dress. This is the one. Can't wait to see you all in it. I clicked the link. $850. My stomach just dropped. I texted her privately. Harper, I really can't afford this. Can we please look at alternatives? She responded like 3 hours later with just put it on a credit card. That's what everyone does. Which, I mean, I guess some people do that. But I was already carrying debt from my car repair the previous month, and my job at the time wasn't paying great. I was working as an assistant at a marketing firm, barely making enough to cover rent and bills. Putting another $800 on credit would have buried me. I tried calling her. She didn't pick up. I tried again the next day. Still nothing. Then on Friday evening, I get this text from my mom. We need to talk about Harper's wedding. Come to dinner Sunday. I knew it was going to be bad. My mom has always favored Harper. Not in a dramatic way. Just in that subtle way where Harper's needs always seemed more important. Harper's feelings always needed protecting. I'm probably leaving stuff out, but whatever. You get the idea. I showed up Sunday and it was like walking into an ambush. My mom, my dad, Harper, Blake, and somehow also my Aunt Julia and Uncle Trevor. They were all there, sitting in the living room, and the second I walked in, I knew Harper had told them her version of events. My mom didn't even wait for me to sit down. Your sister is very upset. She says you're refusing to be in her wedding over a dress. I tried to explain. I'm not refusing to be in the wedding. I just can't afford an $800 dress. Can we find a compromise? Harper started crying. I knew you didn't really care about me. You've been jealous ever since I got engaged. Which was so completely out of left field that I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd I didn't know how else to react. That laugh? That was apparently the worst thing I could have done. My mom's face went red. How dare you laugh at your sister when she's crying? My dad was just sitting there, looking uncomfortable but not saying anything. Blake was trying to comfort Harper, and my aunt and uncle were watching like this was some kind of reality show. I felt like I was losing my mind. I'm not laughing at her, this is ridiculous. I can't afford the dress. That's the only issue here. We can find a different dress, but Harper wasn't having it. It's not just the dress. You've been difficult about everything. You complained about the venue being too far. You said the invitations were too expensive. You're trying to make this about you. And I'm standing there going through my memories, trying to figure out when I complained about the venue. I mentioned one time, that it was an hour-and-a-half drive. And that was only because she asked if I thought people would mind the distance. The invitations thing? She'd asked my opinion on 3 different options, and I said the cheapest one looked just as nice as the expensive ones. I was trying to be helpful. I looked at my mom. This is between me and Harper. We can work this out. And my mom said, no, you'll work it out right now. You'll apologize to your sister, and you'll order the dress she picked. I felt my face getting hot again. I'm not apologizing for not having money. If Harper wants that specific dress, that's fine, but I can't be a bridesmaid then. I'll still come to the wedding. I'll still help with whatever she needs. But I can't spend money I don't have. That's when my mom called me selfish. Her exact words were, you are being selfish and ungrateful after everything Harper has done for you. And Harper just kept crying. And everyone was looking at me like I was the villain. And I just walked out. I got in my car and left. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely get the key in the ignition. Harper called me 17 times that night. I didn't answer. Then she started texting. You're ruining my wedding. Mom's right, you've always been jealous of me. I can't believe you'd do this. I took screenshots of all of it. I don't know why exactly. Maybe I just wanted proof that I wasn't crazy, that this was actually happening. The next day at work, I could barely focus. My coworker Scott noticed I was off and asked if I was okay. I ended up telling him the whole story during lunch. He listened to everything and then said, that's financial abuse. She's trying to force you into debt for her aesthetic preferences, which honestly I hadn't thought about it that way. But he was right. That's exactly what she was doing. I decided to document everything. I went through our text history and took screenshots of every conversation about wedding planning. Harper asking me to split costs on decorations she picked without consulting me. Harper expecting me to take unpaid time off work to help with setup. Harper assuming I'd pay for my own hair and makeup for the wedding day, which she'd mentioned would be around $300 because she wanted a specific stylist. When I actually sat down and added it up, she was expecting me to spend over $2,000 total to be in her wedding. $2,000 I absolutely did not have. I created a folder on my laptop and organized everything by date, screenshots, receipts for things I'd already paid for, a spreadsheet breaking down all the expected costs. I'm probably obsessive, but it made me feel less crazy to see it all laid out like that. A week went by. Harper wasn't speaking to me. My mom called twice and I let it go to voicemail both times. She left messages about how I was tearing the family apart, how Harper was devastated, how I needed to fix this. My dad texted once, your mother is very upset. Please call your sister. That was it. No acknowledgement of my side, no asking if I was okay. Then my Aunt Julia called. I almost didn't answer because I figured she was calling to yell at me too, but something made me pick up. She was quiet for a second, and then she said, I wanted to apologize for not speaking up at dinner. Your mother put me on the spot and I didn't know what to say, but you're right. That dress is unreasonably expensive. She told me that she'd been thinking about it all week, that she'd actually looked up the dress online and couldn't believe Harper expected everyone to pay that much. It's a bridesmaid dress, she said. You wear it once. This is ridiculous. I almost cried. Just having one person validate that I wasn't being crazy meant everything. She asked if I'd tried talking to Harper again, and I said no. What's the point? She's made up her mind that I'm the bad guy. My aunt suggested I write Harper an email, lay everything out calmly with numbers and facts, give her one more chance to be reasonable. So I did. I spent 3 hours on that email. I explained my financial situation, not in a sob story way, just factually. I broke down every cost she was asking me to cover. I offered compromises. I could be in the wedding in a different dress, or I could step down as maid of honor but still help with planning. or we could find a less expensive dress that still fit her vision. I told her I loved her and wanted to be part of her day, but I couldn't go into debt to do it. I read it like 5 times before sending it, made sure the tone was calm and reasonable. She responded in 10 minutes. One line, "I'm not compromising on my wedding. Elise will be maid of honor," and that was it. I was out. Just like that. 3 months of planning, countless hours of work, and I was replaced in 10 minutes over an email. I took a screenshot of her response and added it to my folder. At this point, I wasn't even sure why I was still documenting everything. Maybe I just needed proof for myself that this was real. The family fallout was immediate. My mom stopped talking to me completely. My dad would send these sad, short texts like "I miss you" or "I wish this could be resolved," but he never actually did anything to help resolve it. Harper blocked me on social media. Celine, my cousin who was still in the wedding, sent me a long text about how disappointed she was in me, how family should support each other no matter what. I didn't respond. But then something interesting happened. Madison, Blake's sister, called me about 2 weeks after I got kicked out of the wedding. She was really careful at first, asking how I was doing, making small talk. Then she said, "I need to tell you something, but you can't tell Harper I told you." Apparently, Harper had been talking to the other bridesmaids about how I was jealous of her relationship, how I'd been trying to sabotage the wedding from the start, how I'd always been the difficult sister. Madison said she didn't believe any of it, that she'd been there for the planning and I'd been nothing but helpful and supportive. Then she told me the real reason she was calling. Harper had changed the bridesmaid dresses. After I left, Elise had also said the lavender dress was too expensive. Madison had agreed. Harper had thrown a fit apparently, but Blake had stepped in and said they needed to be realistic about what they were asking people to spend. So Harper picked a different dress, $600 instead of $850. I just sat there holding the phone, trying to process this. So she could compromise. She just wouldn't compromise for me. Madison seemed to realize what she'd just revealed because she got really quiet. "I'm sorry," she said. "I thought you should know." I thanked her and we hung up. I added notes about that conversation to my folder. I know how this sounds, like I'm building some kind of case for court or something. But honestly, I needed the validation. I needed proof that I wasn't the crazy one, that my memory of events was accurate, that I hadn't somehow imagined the whole thing. The wedding was in October, like I said. I didn't go. Harper didn't invite me once I was out of the wedding party. My parents went, obviously. My mom posted about 1 million pictures on social media. Harper looking beautiful, the ceremony, the reception. The bridesmaids in their new, less expensive dresses. I looked at the photos once, and then muted my mom's account. My Aunt Julia sent me a text the day after the wedding. "Thinking of you today. Hope you're doing okay." It was the only acknowledgement I got from anyone that maybe, just maybe, this whole situation sucked for me too. Life went on. I threw myself into work, got a promotion in November, moved to a better apartment in December. I started seeing a therapist in January because I couldn't shake this feeling of confusion and hurt. My therapist asked me to describe my relationship with Harper, and as I talked through years of memories, patterns started emerging that I'd never really examined before. Harper always positioned herself as the helper, but she only helped when it benefited her somehow. When she let me tag along to parties in high school, she needed a designated driver. When she helped me move into my apartment, she needed to borrow my truck the next week. Every favor came with an unspoken debt attached. And I just accepted it because that's what sisters did, right? They helped each other. My therapist introduced me to this term, covert narcissism. People who appear generous and helpful on the surface, but are actually manipulating situations to make themselves look good and keep others indebted to them. The whole wedding situation, classic pattern. She got to be the perfect bride with the perfect vision, and anyone who couldn't meet her expectations was selfish and unsupportive. She got to be the victim while actually being completely unreasonable. I'm not gonna lie. Realizing this messed me up for a while. It meant recontextualizing, like, my entire childhood and adult relationship with my sister. Every memory took on this different shade. In March, 5 months after the wedding, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Elise, Harper's friend from college and the new maid of honor. "Can we talk?" I called her, suspicious but curious. She told me she needed to apologize. She said that after the wedding, she and Harper had gotten into a huge fight because Harper expected Elise to help pay for the honeymoon as a maid of honor gift. Elise had laughed because she thought Harper was kidding. Harper wasn't kidding. Elise told me she'd spent over $3,000 on wedding-related expenses. The dress, the shower, the bachelorette party, hair and makeup, a gift. And now apparently she was supposed to contribute another $500 toward the honeymoon. When Elise said no, Harper lost it, told her she was ungrateful, that she'd honored her by making her maid of honor after I abandoned the role, that this was the least Elise could do. They weren't speaking anymore, and here's the thing that made my stomach drop. Elise said, "She told me you backed out because you were jealous and difficult. But after dealing with her myself, I know that was a lie. I'm so sorry I believed her. I'm sorry I didn't reach out to you earlier. I wanted to call you in October, but I didn't know what to say." I felt this weird mix of vindication and sadness. Vindication, because here was proof, independent confirmation that I wasn't crazy. Sadness, because Harper was doing this to everyone, not just me. She was burning through relationships and blaming everyone else for the fire. Elise asked if I'd kept any records from the planning. I told her about my folder and she asked if I could send it to her. She was considering small claims court for some of the money. Apparently, Harper had promised to reimburse her for the shower expenses and never did. I sent her everything, all the screenshots, the spreadsheets, the timeline. She was silent for a long time after she looked through it. Then she just said, "Wow, this is insane. Thank you for documenting all this." I don't know what happened with the small claims thing. Elise and I texted a few times after that, but we weren't close. And eventually the messages just stopped. But something shifted for me after that conversation. I stopped waiting for my family to apologize or acknowledge what happened. I stopped checking my mom's social media. I stopped hoping Harper would wake up one day and realize how she'd treated people. My dad reached out in April with one of his sad texts. "Your sister is pregnant. Thought you'd want to know." I stared at that message for probably 10 minutes. I felt nothing. Not excitement about being an aunt. Not anger about being informed via text. Just nothing. I responded, "Congratulations to her." That was it. He called me a few days later. I almost didn't answer, but I picked up. He wanted to know if I'd come to a family dinner to celebrate Harper's pregnancy. I asked if Harper wanted me there. He got quiet. Then he admitted that, no, Harper didn't want me there, but he thought maybe this could be a chance to rebuild bridges. Start fresh. I told him no. I wasn't interested in starting fresh when there'd been no acknowledgement of what happened, no apology, nothing. He sighed and said he understood, but I could tell he didn't really. He wanted everything to go back to normal without anyone having to actually deal with what normal had been. My Aunt Julia called the next week. She wanted to check in, make sure I was doing okay. She told me that my mom had been talking about me at church, telling people I'd abandoned the family over a dress, painting herself and Harper as the victims of my selfishness. Julia had tried to correct the record, but my mom shut her down, said Julia didn't know the whole story. Julia asked if I'd ever consider reconciling with them. I told her honestly, I don't know. Maybe someday. But not until they can acknowledge their part in what happened. Not until Harper can admit she was unreasonable and my mom can admit she took Harper's side without even listening to me. Julia said that seemed fair, but we both knew it probably wouldn't happen. Here's what I've realized through therapy and distance and time. Some family relationships aren't worth saving. That sounds harsh. Like it goes against everything we're taught about family being forever and blood being thicker than water and all that. But the reality is, some relationships are toxic. Some people will take and take and take, and then blame you when you're empty. Harper needed me to play a role. The supportive younger sister who made her look good and never challenged her. The second I stepped out of that role, I became the villain in her story. And my mom enabled it because having Harper be happy was more important than me being treated fairly. My dad went along with it because confrontation made him uncomfortable. I'm not in debt because of a bridesmaid dress. I'm not exhausted and broke and resentful. I have a job I actually like now. Got promoted again in June. I moved to a new apartment in a neighborhood I love. I've been dating someone for a few months and it's going really well. He knows about the family situation, and he's supportive without being pushy about it. Life is honestly pretty good. Do I miss my family? Sometimes. I miss the idea of having a sister I could call about random stuff. I miss the idea of parents who support me, but I don't miss the reality of what those relationships actually were. I don't miss walking on eggshells. I don't miss being the bad guy in someone else's narrative. I don't miss being gaslit into thinking I'm selfish for having reasonable boundaries. My therapist asked me a few months ago what I'd say to Harper if I could say anything without consequences. I thought about it and said, I'd tell her that love isn't debt, that helping someone shouldn't come with strings attached, that being family doesn't mean someone gets to treat you like garbage and expect you to be grateful for it. The therapist nodded and said, maybe you need to tell yourself that instead. It's October now. Harper's baby is due in a few weeks according to the family grapevine that somehow still reaches me. My mom has been posting ultrasound pictures and nursery updates. I'm sure I won't be invited to meet the baby. That's okay. Or it will be okay eventually. The thing about cutting off toxic family members is that people act like you're giving up, like you're the one breaking the relationship. But I didn't break it. It was broken for years. I just finally stopped pretending it wasn't. Harper broke it when she demanded I go into debt for her aesthetic. My mom broke it when she called me selfish for having boundaries. They broke it. I just stopped trying to fix it with my bare hands while they kept swinging the hammer. I ran into Madison at a coffee shop last month. She was surprised to see me, gave me this awkward hug. We talked for a few minutes and she mentioned that she and Blake were doing well, but that family gatherings with Harper were stressful. She didn't elaborate and I didn't ask, but she gave me this look, like she understood now, like she'd seen enough to know that maybe I wasn't the crazy one after all. I think about that folder on my laptop sometimes. All those screenshots and spreadsheets and timelines. I haven't looked at it in months, but I keep it. Maybe I'll need it someday if Harper tries to rewrite history even more than she already has. Maybe I'll never look at it again. Either way, it's there. Proof that I'm not crazy. Proof that it really happened the way I remember it. The hardest part isn't the loss of relationships. It's the what-ifs. What if I'd just bought the dress? What if I'd gone into debt, played my role, kept the peace? Would things be different? My therapist says that's not a useful thought pattern, that I'd be broke and resentful instead of healing and moving forward. She's right. But the what-ifs still creep in sometimes, usually at like 2 a.m. when I can't sleep. I'm not completely cut off from everyone. My Aunt Julia and I talk regularly. She sends me updates about family stuff that she thinks I'd want to know. Always careful not to push me toward reconciliation. She respects my boundaries. That's what actual support looks like, I've learned. Not demanding I sacrifice myself on the altar of family harmony, but accepting that sometimes distance is the healthiest option. My dad texted last week. Just wanted to see how you're doing. I responded. I'm good. Work is going well. Hope you're doing okay too. That's where we are now. Surface level pleasantries. It's not great, but it's better than the angry silence from before. Small steps, my therapist says. There's no dramatic conclusion to this story. No big confrontation where Harper realizes what she did wrong and apologizes. No family intervention where everyone finally sees my side. That's not how real life works most of the time. Sometimes the ending is just you, on the other side of the mess, realizing you can breathe again, realizing that the knot in your stomach is gone, that you don't dread checking your phone anymore, that you're actually happy more often than you're sad. I've thought about writing Harper a letter, laying everything out one final time, but what would be the point? She's not going to suddenly develop self-awareness. She's not going to realize she's been the architect of every bridge she's burned. She's going to keep being Harper, and people will either figure it out and pull away like Elise and me, or they'll stay and enable her like my mom does. The truth is, I don't need her to understand. I don't need my mom to validate my feelings. I don't need any of them to admit they were wrong. I know what happened. I have the receipts, literally, and more importantly, I've done the work to understand the patterns, to heal from them, to make sure I don't repeat them in my own relationships. That's the real resolution. Not justice or revenge or vindication. Just the quiet realization that you're okay without the people who made you feel small. That you can build a life that doesn't include people who treat your needs like inconveniences. That family isn't always who you're born with. Sometimes it's who you choose. So yeah, that's the whole thing. My sister asked me to be her maid of honor, and it cost me my family, but honestly, I think I got the better end of that deal. Wild how these things work out. Thanks for hanging out and listening to this mess. It always feels like catching up with a buddy when I can just talk through it like this. Subscribe so we can do it again.